Hey, what's up everybody? Today I was just going to show you the steps I take to make smoked steelhead and smoked salmon. So check this out. Make it pretty quick and easy for you. So step one is you got to get yourself a fish, obviously. So this is just going to go over the stuff I do. After I've got the fish, I've got it all filleted out. If you haven't done this yet, get yourself a little notebook that you can kind of store your recipes in. Have a nice little workstation. I use a Big Chief smoker primarily. I have other smokers and other ways, but I like using the Big Chief smoker. And then this is, I think it's like a 1 gallon container. And then I put all the cut up pieces of fish in a wet brine. Probably the one that I've used most recently that I like. I have modified it just a little bit. So 8 cups of water, well roughly that's about, you take this, about half of this container full of water. I put in 1 packed cup of brown sugar. Sometimes I do 1.5, maybe even more brown sugar. And then a full half of a cup of salt, 2 tablespoons of pepper, 1 teaspoon, sometimes a couple teaspoons of liquid smoke, and 1 or 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, and then 3 or more, maybe 3 to 5 teaspoons of soy sauce. I always do some tablespoons of minced garlic, probably a couple of tablespoons of that. Now, I'm going to go get you something here. I'm show you what else I've been using. It's really good. I like my stuff to have a little bit of bite to it. Not super hot, but check this out. So fried chili in oil. You can kind of see it in there. It gives a little bit of a little red look to it. It really makes it look good, and it sure tastes really good. So don't be afraid of it, even if you don't like hot stuff, because it's not super hot. Just gives it a little bit more zip. I usually do 1 full spoonful of that stuff, and I stick it in with my brine here. And then, so what you do, you cut it up into little strips, little small pieces like that. Stick it in the brine, and at least overnight. Don't shortchange yourself on the soaking. At least 12 hours. You could go up to even 2 days of soaking if you want, but usually between like a full overnight of soaking up to a full day is usually really good on the brine. After you've soaked this thing, so here's a bunch of fish. This is the residue from the fried chili. When you're getting ready to put all this meat on the racks, you need to go in and like rinse all this brine out. I soak this 2 or 3 times, empty the water out, and then fill it back up so that when I am taking it out, I'm gonna wind up with fairly clean meat. You're just gonna lay that skin side down on these racks. And when you do this, it's important to let the stuff soak for a while. Like, obviously you soak it overnight because it's absorbing the salts and the sugars and stuff like that. So that's what I do. Hang out, watch the rest of this video, and you'll see what else comes up next. Alright guys, so at this point I've got the fish on the racks, and it's going to air dry. I want it to air dry so that this ends up being a little bit of a tacky finish, and that's something that's really important. Don't underestimate how important that is when you're smoking fish. I don't know why it's that way, but somehow it's important. Makes it better, 100% better. So next step after this, I'm going to let it sit here and do its thing. It's just going to chill and like kind of air dry for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. And then I'm going to put it out on the Big Chief smoker, and we're going to smoke it most of the day, probably 2 or 3 hours in the smoker. All right, so here's my smoker. Got these alder chips. These are kind of the fine alder chips, and I also have these ones that are also alder, but they're a little bit chunkier. I don't know if those chunky or regular, I don't know which ones really make better or worse, but I got them all sitting in the smoker. go around and plug the smoker in and let it smoke for a couple hours. Yeehaw! Okay, so when the smoker stops smoking, it just means that it's out of wood chips. So I'm gonna add a little bit more. Usually I don't do more than maybe 2 pans of chips. More than that is not really that necessary. Okay, we're gonna do a little checking on things here. Ooh. Yeah, that's about ready to move. From this point, I like to take them in and stick them in on my little food dryer in my house. So that's what I'm gonna do next. Pull these out. Okay, so the next step is to take these and then put them onto these little racks, and then we're gonna dry them until they're done. Okay, so I've got them in there. I always like to do the thinnest pieces of meat furthest away from the dryer, just so that it gives them a chance to dry fairly evenly. And then if I have really thick stuff, I flip this over so that there's a little bit more room. I give a couple more layers just as a buffer so it's not sitting right down on the meat. Set that on there. Plug it in. And then everybody gets the joy of smelling the smoked fish for the next couple hours. So here's the last step. I'm gonna squirt in some honey. I'm gonna mix the honey. It's kind of a nice little sticky substance. And then put this in here. This is gonna go as a coating over the top of this meat. Now that it's almost done, almost dry. I'm gonna water it down just a little bit so it spreads a little better. Alright, so it's a lot like you're handling barbecue. You're just gonna put it on there. Just want it to have a nice little coating, little candy. It's not really candy. I mean, it's kind of sweet, but it's also just spicy, so just adds a little bit of zip to it. Alright, that's a little bit more thicker, a little more consistent with what I like. Oh my gosh, this is going to be really good, guys. I'm putting this GoPro's on my head, so I have no idea if I'm getting this shot in the frame very well or not, but trying. I don't know, maybe in some ways putting extra stuff on it like this is a little bit cheating compared to like a traditional smoke like you'd have. Oh ho ho, that's gonna be good. Miss any of them? Put that one on. There we go. Oops, yeah, it looks like I got it all over the table. It's gonna be messy. It's a little bit hard to clean this stuff because it's got such a strong stain to it. Alright, now we're almost done. We just gotta let it do its thing on this dryer for a little while. Alright, so just want to show you guys the consistency you're looking for with this. When you push on it, it's got to be kind of firm, like Play-Doh that's not squishy. It's firm, then it's done. Some of this stuff, yeah, it's pretty firm. This stuff is still squishy, so it's not done yet. That one's borderline. I'm gonna leave. That one's done. Yeah, and then these, you can see they're getting close, but they're still very squishy. They're not done yet. So we're gonna let those play out a little bit longer. These ones in the bag are done. You always put them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the fridge after you smoke them, and that lets it redistribute the moisture. Alright guys, this all looks like it's done. And the bottom one, yep, when the tails start curling, that's for sure a sign of done. So, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Hopefully the next video you see, I'm going to be catching some whoppers. Talk to you guys later.